One. Hey everybody, we're gonna try this again here with going live with the Game Addicted Show, breaking down some college football rankings. Quite a bit to talk about this week. The playoff committee came out with their rankings, and as a lot of people have been, mentioning online on their webs, it's kind of a mess, kind of a crazy ranking, a very crazy from other years. Um, Even how it compares to my calculations here. So before we jump into it, guys, if you are new to my channel, check me out on Twitch. That's where I do all my content now, my main platform. I think it's a great place to have live discussions on college football. Break it down why your team's the best. Break it down why it's the worst. And break it down why I love your mama. So, yeah, make sure to check me out there. Give me a follow. Help me grow that community. And if you are on Twitch, watch me live right now, and you're like, well, what about some previous breakdowns of college football? Head over to my YouTube channel. I go on there to archive all my old footage so you can catch anything from this year, last year, and even the year prior. So it's all there for you, both at Game Addicted Show. Find me on both platforms. Okay, so we're at it this week with the playoff rankings. So there's very few things that were, I think, done correctly, and a lot of things that, let's say, were done, I think, I would strongly disagree with. So I've broken down to a few parts, and let's start with the positive, right? The big news, one of the biggest news, probably I would say the biggest story of this, is the change with Cincinnati. Now, for weeks, I want to start by saying I am a huge advocate for the American Athletic Conference. They are underrated. Every year I've done this, right? And as much as I want to root for Cincinnati, I've been saying for weeks I wholeheartedly agree with them dropping out of the top two, being the ranked number 2 team. I just didn't see it. So let's jump into that first, right? So Cincinnati, dropped to number 6. I actually have them down as low as number 7. There's a few reasons for this, right? For those of you new, I use what I coined the VPI formula, where I look at teams' total offense, total defense for their opponents and their opponents, and looking also at strength of schedule, which also looks at the winning percentage of your opponents and opponents. We mix it all together and we come up with the ranking using all data. This is strictly data driven, so there's no personal opinion of mine. And calculating that, looking at a few things here with Cincinnati. So I mean, they have, as much as I respect the American Athletic Conference, they haven't played any of their best schools from that conference. The toughest school they've beaten from the American Athletic Conference is UCF. They haven't played SMU. They haven't played Memphis. They haven't played let's go through a few teams in the American Athletic Conference here. They haven't played Houston yet. They haven't played, I already mentioned SMU. Yeah, so out of your 3 toughest teams, you've only played one of them, and UCF is not that great, right? So the outside of playing in the American Athletic Conference, the only win you have to hang your hat on is Notre Dame, which is an amazing win. I do not want to knock that win at all. I think Notre Dame is severely underrated, and we'll get into that in a little bit later. But so as great as that win is, and as much as Cincinnati does deserve to be a top 10 team, they do not deserve to be a top 2 team. Are they still in the playoff conversation? Absolutely. I think there's plenty left on their schedule for them to be able to move forward, because they have 4 games left in the regular season. One of them is against SMU, and we'll see what happens in their playoff game. I don't know if that's going to lead them to playing another tough opponent. So we'll see how the division races break down. But as of now, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with the drop. Like I said, I have an even lower what the playoff committee has. So that's one thing I do agree with. Next, let's jump into the mess that is Oregon. Now, As you guys know, I'm a massive UCLA fan. I am a homer for the Pac-12, but I have not been able to justify Oregon being a top 10, sometimes even a top 25 team. Like it's hard to, like they were on the bottom end of the top 25 for a while for me. And as they've continued to win, they've climbed up the ladder. What I expected with these rankings, I would at best, I expected Oregon just to not move, just stay in the same ranking, right? At worst, I expected them to drop a few spots, coming closer to where I have them. Now, I have Oregon number 13. Just remember, a few weeks ago, they were number 23. In about 3 weeks' time, 3 or 4 weeks, I think, let's say 3 weeks, they've moved up 10 spots. So they've got some quality wins, especially against us with UCLA. They just beat Colorado, had squeaked in victory over Cal. So they've been moving up in the rankings slowly. And I'm so shocked that they moved in top four because I'm sorry, they are not deserving to be a top four team. It's not even close. So let's break a few things down here for Oregon. Listen, the Pac-12 is bad this year, and again, I'm a Pac-12 homer, but look at the strength of schedule, absolute garbage. 110. Strength of production, which is a measure of same strength of schedule, only it's looking at teams' total offense and defense combined for their opponents and opponents. It's a mediocre 69. It's on the wrong side of center. This metric here, the 5.21 points, that's the quality of their wins, right? The higher the number, the better quality numbers. It's solid. It's a 5 is good. 6 is good. And then 7 is like amazing. So they got solid wins, right? It's not terrible. But even if you don't agree with any of that, here's the one thing you have to agree with. Oregon, if we look at all the one-loss schools, they have the worst single loss with Stanford. Remember, Stanford is 3-5. They have a losing record. They have a negative score when it comes to the VPI formula, right? Let's compare some other teams with one loss, right? Notre Dame, their worst loss is against Cincinnati, right? An undefeated team. Let's jump into Michigan. Michigan, whose worst loss is against Michigan State. Look at their strength of schedule. Number 11 in the nation versus Oregon, 110, right? And, Michigan... let's keep going through here, right? Ohio State, obviously lost to Oregon. Alabama lost to Texas A&M, a top 25 school. You're telling me Oregon deserves to be a number 4 school? How do you justify that? Like I said, forgetting about playing the Pac-12, forgetting about their strength schedule, forgetting all of that. With their loss being the worst of any school with the 7-1 record, how... There's no way. Again, I really thought going into here, at best, they would have the same ranking. At worst, they would drop a few spots. No way would I ever imagine they'd move up. That absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry. And again, this is coming from a Pac-12 homer. I would love the Pac-12 to get in the playoffs, but you can't. I don't know what the committee's thinking there, man. You can't justify it. All right. So that's just, it gets worse, people. I mean. Let's we'll keep going back and forth with positive and negative, right? Here's a positive. Georgia, without question, it's not even close that they are the number 1 team in the nation. They are so many points ahead of the next close school with Michigan. I mean, look at Georgia. And again, for being a Pac-12 homer to guy who's a SEC hater, I mean, I hate the SEC with a passion. They're just usually the foundation of me even creating this database and creating this dashboard and everything was to prove how overrated the SEC is, even though right now I'm proving that they're the best conference with the best team in the nation, and it's not even close. With all of that, for me to say that Georgia is the clear number 1 and it's not even close, I mean, that would be an understatement. Just strength schedule. 17th in the nation, just strong, right? Strength of production number 8. They're facing some of the top offensive defense in the nation. Look at their VPI per game, 6.51. I mean, that is absolutely stellar, right? Their worst win. Oh well, never mind. I was gonna say South Carolina, but it's actually Vanderbilt. That's a pretty bad team. But I mean, the majority of the teams they play are have a winning record or 500. The only team with a losing record is Vanderbilt. I mean, they do have, I think, Division two school coming up either this week or next week, which is going to drop their score a little bit. But I mean, it's not going to do anything really. I mean, Georgia's killing it, man. I this is unreal how dominant they are. So I'll say the committee got that right. Let's move on to something that the committee got wrong. Um, let's address Oklahoma going a little south. I understand it, but I have to disagree. But and let me put it this way. So I always mention on here that games have value, right? Each game that you win holds certain value. That's why we use this formula to determine how many wins from a small school would be equivalent to one win from a big school. That's what we're trying to answer here. And with Oklahoma, even though if they were to play 8 games, they would be lower in these rankings. But they have that because the schedule, the way it played out, they have that one additional win. And every additional win you have, just like imagine, you play 12 games and then you get a bonus game to play in a conference championship game, and then you go on and win that. It's an additional game you won. You should be credited for that. So because they have one additional game over everybody else, I don't know if how many other schools have played 9 games so far, and they're undefeated. They should be rewarded for that. So I think they got knocked a little bit. Now I think when things, when Oklahoma's bye week finally comes and things even out, then I think they'll most likely drop. And here's why: their strength schedule out of all the top 5 schools is absolute garbage. I think out of the top 10 schools, I don't know if anybody has a worse strength schedule. Yeah, the worst, right? Their victory, their VPI points is the lowest, I think, of any of these top 10 schools. And the Big 12 is not a bad conference, and they do have some solid wins. Their biggest being, it looks like, Kansas State, surprisingly. I thought the Texas one. Well, Texas keeps losing, but yeah, that's their biggest win. So they've played Division two school. Tulane is really bad. Kansas is really bad. They just played them. So there's just really not a lot to look at here with Oklahoma. Not to say that they can't climb back up when they face like Baylor, which is having a great season. But yeah, I understand the rankings. I don't agree because again, Oklahoma should be rewarded for playing that, having 9 wins over everybody else having 7 or 8 wins. But yeah, I'm not going to dispute it too much. So that's when they got wrong. Let's keep going back and forth. Let's go to something they got right, right? Michigan State. Michigan State did deserve to move up to be a top 3 team. In the AP polls, they're number 5 and they're number 3 here. I have them at number 2. And the reason being is because they beat Michigan. Michigan, a team I actually had ranked number 2. I think Michigan was really underrated. And that Michigan State win really goes a long way. What's interesting is that obviously, clearly, that's a massive win for Michigan State. Michigan State already had as a top 10 team. Really bad strength of schedule, surprisingly. Strength of production, solid. Mid-tier on the right side of that, though. Solid VPI per game. But yeah, I think it's accurate to say that Michigan should be a top 3 team. I'm going to say they're number 2. So yeah, that's something that's accurate. Which leads to a ranking that I think is very inaccurate. This one I've been debating for a while. And this one's probably the one I'm going to get the most flack for. And that's going to be with Alabama. Alabama being ranked number 2 is strictly because their name is Alabama. That's it. And I've been making this argument for weeks. There is nothing on Alabama's schedule to justify such a high ranking, right? they're ranked there. Obviously, they have top recruiting class every year. Obviously, they've been there. Obviously, they win the games they need to win. I get that, right? But you can't dismiss that they do have a loss. You can't dismiss that they have played an FCS school compared to, like, Georgia, who hasn't played an FCS school yet, compared to, that's not a good example. Notre Dame, who hasn't played an FCS school. We'll jump into Notre Dame in a little bit, but Michigan, who hasn't played an FCS school. A lot of these schools. Cincinnati has played one, but anyways, yeah, playing that FCS school, playing Southern Mississippi, losing to Texas A&M. Alabama's biggest win is Ole Miss, who just lost, and that's gonna hurt them. Their VPI per game is really good. Their strength of production is super high, number 6, right? Strength schedule, middle of the road, but yeah, is this makeup enough to justify top 3, especially when like Michigan State, who just beat Michigan, and again, Michigan is really underrated. That's a bigger win, and Michigan State as a whole has a weaker strength of schedule, but they're undefeated. So I can't. I could justify Alabama being a top 10 team, right? I'm saying that they are in the playoff conversation. I'm just saying that looking at their schedule, you can't justify a top number 2 ranking. I just don't think it's there. I think they'll get there, but I just think the name Alabama is what's getting them there. That's why they got moved up in the rankings. But yeah, feel free to disagree. So let's jump into a very controversial one, as we're keeping this controversy going. Someone said this, and I have to agree. Someone said that if Wake Forest was named Clemson instead, they'd be a top 3 team because they're undefeated. Look at their offense, number 9 in the nation. Defense, absolute garbage, but strength of schedule, really bad. But it's the ACC. They've always been weak. Strength production, solid. But in their VPI per game's not bad, right? They have 8 wins. Yeah, nothing that stands out too much. And you're going to say, wait, how do you justify Wake Forest, being ranked as a top 3 team and not Alabama? Well, again, not having a loss is a big part of it. And yeah, it's just that, and it's just that not having a loss, really, that's, you're rewarded for that, if you lose a game, depending on how many you lose here, I actually subtract this from your score. So, what overall score 41.69, and Alabama is 35.56. So if they actually beat Texas A&M, Alabama would deserve a top 3 spot. But yeah, that loss hurts them. And jumping into that, we'll wait on that. I have something to say as the SEC overall. But we'll save that for last. That'll be my best rant, I think. But yeah, I think Wake Forest, they did move up in the rankings, which is nice. So they are getting the respect. They are finally our top 10 team. They're number 9. So they're getting there. And again, I think a big part of it is just the name. I think that, if you look at the strength schedule that Michigan State has, not that much better than Wake Forest. I mean, Wake Forest is 9 spots back in both strength production and strength schedule. So really comparable. Obviously, the difference between Michigan State and Wake Forest is Michigan State has that big win over Michigan. But yeah, I'll stand by it. Wake Forest should be a top 3 team till proven otherwise. And the proven otherwise might be in the form. Let's go another thing I disagree with. And this one's a big one. I don't like the Irish. I really don't. I don't like Notre Dame. But you can't justify them being ranked so low. Now, they've shot up. They're a top 10 team now. But I do strongly believe Notre Dame should be in the playoff conversation. Here's a few reasons why. Look at this victory prediction per game. It's 640. Higher than these teams, right? Their one loss is to an undefeated Cincinnati. Strength of schedule number 12 in the nation. Strength of production number 4 in the nation. They're 71. Again, I know you're looking for that one signature win. Their best win is against Wisconsin, which, again, Wisconsin, I've been saying for a while, is really underrated because I think their winning percentage is very misleading because their strength schedule is so tough. I mean, I think Wisconsin. Let's take a quick look at Wisconsin. Wisconsin has that's you want the Big 10, not Big 12. Numbers mess me up. Yeah, Wisconsin has the second toughest strength of schedule in the nation. So, yeah, now that their schedule's a little bit easier, they're starting to rally, and it's showing. But Notre Dame, with this strength of schedule, I understand, as a whole, you have to look at them as a whole, that their only team that the losing record is Florida State with a 3-5. You know, they haven't played an FCS school. Tough schedule. Playing some tough offenses, defenses. Notre Dame should absolutely be in the playoff conversation. I think that it's nice to look at that one big win, kind of like Michigan State. You know, Michigan State's ranked ahead of them, and Michigan State as a whole has played a way worse strength schedule, but they had that one signature win. Where Notre Dame has played a more balanced schedule, but because it's more balanced and there's not like any weak teams really, except for like the exception of one, and even that team's not that weak. Notre Dame should be in the playoff conversation. I stand by that. And who do they have left on the schedule? They're ranked number 10. I thought they were ranked number 8, so I do apologize for that. And yeah, they still have Stanford, winnable game, Georgia Tech, winnable game. Virginia is probably the toughest team they have left. They get through Virginia, I think they have a chance to win out and they have in the playoff conversation. And remember, Notre Dame does not play a title game, so because they're Notre Dame, we'll see. I'll be really curious now thinking about that, like depending on what happens to college championship, the conference playoffs, how that'll affect Notre Dame, if it does at all. Moving on to more critique here. Let's talk about Michigan. Michigan, pretty close. They're number 7 playoff, number 6 here. We're not going to fight that. Michigan, I've been saying for weeks now, very underrated. At one point, I had them number 1 team in the nation before Georgia just way overtook them, right? Look at the strength schedule, number 11. Strength production, number 19, right? Their only loss is to an undefeated team. Absolutely still in the playoff conversation. They still have Ohio State. We don't know what's going to happen in Michigan State. We don't know what's going to play out in the Big Ten division races. So, still a few games left. Anything could happen, but yeah, I would not count the Wolverines. I mean, they definitely have the resume to do it. So don't cut them out. We'll see what happens there. Let's keep going down the list. Speaking of Michigan and Ohio State, let's look at Ohio State. Now, this one, another bit of a controversial pick. Ohio State's ranked number 5. I have number 9 here. And you're thinking, how's that possible? Look at the strength schedule, number 27. Strength production, solid. Not, middle of the road, but solid. 53. That Oregon loss, it's looking better and better every week. But remember, when we're calculating this, we're looking at your opponents and your opponent's opponents. And Oregon, sorry for yawning. Oregon's loss against Stanford goes into that calculation. And again, that was a really bad loss against Stanford. So that's part of it, because you're looking, if you look at the rankings from the perspective of Oregon being a number 4 team, yeah, Ohio State would be ranked number 5. But we have to look at the perspective of Oregon being a number 13 team. And, there's some other weak games they've played. They played Akron. They played Indiana. Their biggest standout win is a win that, that I don't think a lot of people even consider to be a big win at the time, which is Minnesota. Minnesota's having a really great season. At the time, I don't think people thought Minnesota was going to be that great. So, again, I'm saying they are in the playoff conversation. I'm saying they're a top 10 team. I'm just saying that they're not a number 5 team. That's all I'm saying. let's keep the controversy going. The team, the most underrated team in the nation, which I totally understand why they're not even ranked in the top 25. Actually, should be ranked top 25. I'm saying not only should they be ranked top 25, I'm saying they should be ranked number 10. And that is University of Texas San Antonio. And you're seeing this, like, what on God's green earth could give you the idea that this team deserves to be a top 10 team, right? Let alone top 25. Strength schedule, second to last, absolute garbage. Strength production, third to last, absolute garbage. VPI per game, horrendous, a 4. And it goes back to the fact that not only is UTSA undefeated, these wins have value. You got to ask yourself, how many wins from UTSA is equivalent to a bigger school? So let's compare it to a bigger school. We have Ohio State. Ohio State scored 5.7. So almost 1.5 lower than Ohio State. So what we're saying is for every 4 wins, let's do the math here. Yeah, about every 4 wins that UTSA wins is equivalent to 3 wins. It's a 3 to 4 ratio that Ohio State wins. So, again, wins have value. It's a super weak schedule, but they continue to win. And one thing I always want to stress with teams like this, because look at this, everybody has a negative score. The best win they have is a team that's 500 with Memphis. That's their biggest win. I apologize, but if a school like this were to ever lose at any point, they would have a massive drop-off. But it's just a slow climb to the top. But we are saying, out of all the undefeated teams, they are the worst undefeated team. That's what we're saying. But they should still be rewarded with top 25. They should be rewarded number 10. If they continue to win, I promise you they would still not be in the playoff conversation, no matter what UTSA does. Their schedule is too weak. But what we are saying is, because they're undefeated, they deserve to be a top 10 team. That's what we're saying. If you want to debate that, absolutely within your right. But I'm just saying that's what the statistics are showing me here. Usually we go from 25 down to 1. But we're kind of going backwards here. Oklahoma State, the exact same ranking. To the T, right? Strength schedule on the weaker side. Strength production, okay. It's pretty much a balanced schedule. Not the best, not the worst, right? They played an FCS school. They played Tulsa. I apologize, guys. I am so sleepy. But I'm doing this for you guys, powering through. Played Kansas. Biggest win is against Baylor. That was a huge win for them. But, not too much more to say about Oklahoma State. 2 rankings that I totally agree with. Again, Big 12, a solid conference, even though Oklahoma is struggling. Another ranking that is identical is with Baylor. Baylor is number 12 in the playoff committee polls, number 12 here. Finally, we're down to some matches. How many matches do we have so far? I think it's just 3. 3 so far. 3 out of 25. We'll see. Baylor I have as number 12. Similar story to Oklahoma State. Big 12, third best conference. Played Division II schools in Kansas and Texas Tech. Not much you could do there. You can play teams ahead, in front of you. It'd be really interesting how Baylor matches up against Oklahoma because, Oklahoma every week teases that they're going to fall. Maybe Baylor's finally be the team that puts them in. We mentioned Oregon. That's extremely overrated. Excuse me. Let's talk about San Diego State and the committee not respecting any of these small schools. I mean, except for the American Athletic Conference. Even then they disrespect Cincinnati, which I agree with. But San Diego State, with their loss, dropped all the way in turn 24. I'm saying that with Fresno State being 7-2, right? Fresno State, I don't even have as a top 25 team. They are in the playoff committee. I'm not saying Fresno State deserves to be there. But if you look at the strength schedule, it's on par with you know, with like Michigan State, who again is undefeated. So there's some good wins here. Air Force is a good win for them. Utah being a Power Five school, solid win for them. A lot of these wins are pretty bad because you have like New Mexico losing record. You have New Mexico State with losing record. San Jose State, all teams that are struggling. San Jose State has a winning record, but yeah, I'm saying that San Diego State should be ranked higher. And you might be seeing the playoff committee and even wondering, what about those teams that are ranked in those positions? We'll talk about that. You wait. Let's see that for the last. Let's keep running through this. BYU again. I keep vouching for the Tigers Tigers, Cougars. I apologize, guys. It is gonna be 4 a.m. I am exhausted, but I seriously wanted to do this and jump on here. Yeah, again, another team that's matched identical. So what are we up to? Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Our fourth team that's matched identical. Yep, 4 teams so far. Had the schedule to make a playoff run, but it just wasn't to be. Especially that Boise State loss was stupid. I mean, Baylor, I understand. Gosh dang it, Cougs, you guys should beat Boise State. So they still got USC. They still got. They already played Washington State. I think they played a Division II school this week, so I think that's going to hurt them in the rankings. But yeah, totally accurate. Keeping this going down to Houston. Houston, we have a problem because you guys are not ranked, and you absolutely should be. I understand you're 7-1. I understand your VPI is not good, but again, having 7 wins amounts to something, and we're saying it deserves a number 16 ranking. I mean, if you look them and what do we want to compare it to? Let's say Oregon. Look at Oregon, 110 strength production, right? Houston, the strength production is a lot lower, but the strength schedule is pretty close to Oregon. So, again, Pac-12 is having a terrible, terrible year. So if you could justify Oregon being as high as number 4, I think you could justify Houston being number 16 instead of being unranked altogether. So, yeah, another set of Cougars, totally disrespected, but absolutely should be. American Athletics Conference, again, good conference. It's going to be a big game for Cincinnati. We'll see what happens there. We'll save this one. Oh, man, really powering through here. Iowa, this is a really great example, right? So Iowa dropped all the way into number 22. They were number 19. And the AP polls closer to what I have them, but in 22 in the playoff committees. This is what's interesting. We're gonna save Iowa. It ties into my final rant. Let's move into Minnesota. Minnesota ranked number 20 in the playoff committee. I have number 19. Minnesota quietly putting together a really good season, right? They play in the Big Ten. Super great conference, right? Really strong conference. Ranked number 39 straight schedule, 26 strength production. Their only losses, one bad loss, right? And this is probably why they went so quietly, under the radar. Bad loss against Bowling Green. Not a bad loss at all against Ohio State. Their biggest win against Purdue, but pretty balanced schedule. Like they're not being punished too hard for Ohio State. They've been punished pretty bad for Bowling Green, but being 6-2 definitely justifies being a top 25 team. And we will tie that in a little bit to some other teams. Let's skip Ole Miss. Let's go down to SMU. SMU being disrespected by the polls because they just lost to Houston. Again, it's interesting how SMU is not ranked, but aren't they ranked? Yeah, they're ranked in the AP. Yeah, they do not respect these small schools. SMU should absolutely be ranked. Yeah, I understand their VPI is absolutely, I think, the worst we've seen so far, but and they've beaten nothing but teams with losing records. But again, 7-1, those games have value. They're really been rewarded just for winning those games. So they're seeing that school that's going to beat everybody that's either mediocre or bad. But should it be a top 25? I mean, AP polls say so, and I'm saying the same thing as well. They should be a top 25 school. Again, wins have value. They've won enough games to deserve to be a top 25 school, even though it's getting to a really, really weak set of opponents. Louisiana, I seriously thought was gonna take out Texas. Fortunately, lost that game, but I was saying, Raging Cajun, they're the real deal, and they have the wins to back it up. They're 7-1. Came off some big wins. Their biggest win this season's been against Appalachian State. Everybody else, of course, is a losing record with the exception of Texas, who's 500. And South Alabama. But yeah, their biggest win is Appalachian State. And they continue to win. That's why they should be a top 25 team. Really surprised how this played out. So they're not, again, another team that is ranked in the AP polls because of this, but not ranked in the playoff committee. I think we're starting to see a trend here, right? Really disagree with a lot of these small schools being kicked out. We'll get to you. Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina got kicked out when it comes to the playoff committee. Another small school, in this case from the Sun Belt, being disrespected. They're 7-1. I get it. I get that every team they've played, either the best is 500 or, that's the best they've played. But in their one game that actually did have some value, they lost. I get that. And the worst VPI per game of any school we've covered so far. But again, these wins have value, and if you accumulate enough of them, they should be worth something. Again, you have to ask yourself, how many wins from a small school that has a really weak strength schedule is equivalent to a big school with like strong weak strength schedule, right? We just determined earlier, what was it, between UTSA and Ohio State, for every 4 wins that UTSA wins, it's equivalent to 3 wins that Ohio State wins. That's what we're saying. So you wouldn't, your wins should add up in value, even if it's all weak. But even if the strength schedule and everything applied to an SEC school, they would be deserving top 25. So just something to consider. Okay. Let me take a sip. I need to wake up for this because this is my big rant. This is the biggest issue I have with the playoff committee. Okay, here we go. How in the freak do you justify every SEC team to be ranked the highest within their respective record? How? I get that the SEC has the best school in the nation with Georgia right now. I get that they are the best conference in the nation, as much as I regret to admit that. They are. But you're telling me everybody in the conference, it should be the top of the respective record, like compared to other schools, right? You're telling me, we'll break a few of these down right now. You're telling me that there's not a few that should be probably ranked a little bit lower. You're telling me, again, they don't all play each other. The SEC only plays 8 within conference games and 4 non-conference games in the regular season. So you're not going to have a cross between a lot of these supposed top 25 schools. And the other part of it, and this is what really bothers me about the SEC, is that the reason they're considered the best conference a lot of years is because they skew their winning percentage. Because when you play less conference games, those are less losses that are distributed amongst your own conference because of that. So you have those 14 teams not playing one less conference game. That's 14 less losses that are distributed amongst your conference. That is, or would it be 7 losses? I think. Anyways, I'm super tired, guys. Again, it's 4 a.m. But there's more losses distributed amongst your conference. So that is a mathematical fact, and that's how they inflate their winning percentage. Because what ultimately determines who's the best conference isn't inter-conference play. It's really your non-conference play, which really contributes to that. That's because your wins and losses within conference are 500. You're just splitting them, amongst different teams. Like some teams have better winning percentage, but as a whole, your conference is always going to be 500 because you're playing the same amount of games. You know, so the only way to increase your conference winning percentage comes down to your non-conference schedule. So yeah, so since they not only play one more non-conference game, they all play a Division II school, an FCS school, late in the season. Some are early in the season, but the majority of them playing late in the season. So which essentially works as a bye week. But yeah, just inflate their stats. And again, I punish teams for playing FCS schools on here because I treat them as if they were the worst school in Division One. I treat them all the same as 0-12 schools that have a really bad strength schedule. So yeah. So let's explore this. The only exception to this is Georgia. Georgia is the only accurately ranked SEC school. Jumping through here, right? We have. Let's start with Alabama, ranked number 2. I am saying they're number 9. We're talking about 7 spot difference, right? You may debate that. I understand that they're Alabama, but that's what I'm saying. Auburn, my goodness. In what world is Auburn deserving to be a number 13 team? Like, justify that for me. Just for a second. Like, entertain me here, right? Play Division II school. Strength schedule, mediocre, right? 48. Strength production, 64. I understand there's teams with higher strength or worse strength schedules and strength production that are ranked ahead. But look at this. They have 2 losses. One of them justified, right? Against LSU. Georgia. Undefeated, best school in the nation. I get that. Penn State, maybe not so much anymore. Penn State's kind of falling apart there. Let's look at some of the other ones. Their best win, which was a good one, was against Ole Miss, right? Arkansas, another good win. Some mediocre ones with Georgia State and LSU. I'm not saying that Auburn shouldn't be a top 25 team, but we'll start looking at teams ahead of them. I know you want to debate Coastal Carolina, but Coastal Carolina is 7-1, right? Even though their victory production index is lower than Auburn, we are saying that they have that one more win, and that's why I should rank ahead. Before I jump into Kentucky, Louisiana, again, 7-1. Those wins have value. I understand they're small schools. But, yeah, SMU, 7-1. We'll jump into that. So this is, I think, a great example. So the team I was looking for compared to is like Iowa. Iowa, who's a top 3 school. I think they're number 2 in the nation at one point, right? They have 2 losses, right? Wisconsin, which, again, is really underrated school, and then Purdue has having a really good season. Those 2 losses dropped Iowa all the way down to number 22 in the playoff committee. I have them here number 10. They should be ranked higher. So if 2 losses would bring a team all the way down to number 18, and I think we could agree that Iowa, who was a top 3 school at one point, does have a more impressive resume because they are strength schedule 24, strength production 23. Looking at all this, Iowa is more impressive than Auburn, but yet Auburn, it was ranked 9 spots ahead of Iowa in the playoff committee polls. I just don't think it justifies, especially when you just finished saying that Iowa at one point was a top 3 team. Doesn't make sense to me. So that's Iowa. Then there's Kentucky, a school I've been advocating for, right? Kentucky ranked as, actually no. Let's jump into Mississippi State. Let's just look at the SEC as a whole. Mississippi State has no business being even close to a top 25 school. I ranked number 35 here. Yes, I get the strength schedule is really good. I get their strength production is really good. But they have 3 losses. No other team in the top 25 has 3 losses. Oh, I'm sorry. Wisconsin's switched in there. And I think Wisconsin probably has, let's see, Wisconsin real quick. Wisconsin has more reason to be a top 25 and ranked higher than Mississippi. Oh, my God. All right, hold on. Let's just compare Wisconsin to Mississippi State. Again, I'm not even saying Wisconsin be a top 25 school, but they're sure as hell more deserving. Wisconsin is the number 2 toughest strength of schedule in the nation, right? Absolutely brutal strength schedule. And the number 15 strength production, right? That's Wisconsin. Why would Mississippi State be ranked ahead of them? What are we looking at here? Look at Mississippi State. I have ranked number 35, right? About 8 spots back. But yes, they have number 13 strength of schedule and number 18 strength production, but it's not number 2. So we're already seeing off the back. Way tougher strength schedule, right? The second toughest in the nation. Both have 3 losses. But look at some of these losses, right? LSU, Memphis, they're 5.3 LPI, right? Loss per the points per game that they lost. And if we look at Wisconsin, 4.51, right? Their losses are nowhere near as bad because their worst loss was against Penn State. Notre Dame, 7-1. Michigan, 7-1. So we're saying their wins are better. We're saying their losses are not as bad. We're saying number 2 strength of schedule, number 15 strength of production, compared to, again, Mississippi State. How do you justify Mississippi State being a top 25 team with 3 losses when the only school is Wisconsin, who you could make an argument for because, again, number 2 toughest strength schedule in the nation. But, yeah, worse losses than Wisconsin. So, makes no sense to me. Makes absolutely no sense to me at all. Let's keep this going, right? So then we have Kentucky. Kentucky ranked number 18 in the playoff committee, 23 in here, right? Again, why are they ranked higher? Why are the SEC schools making up the top 3 6-2 schools? I get they lost Georgia. That's not a bad loss. They lost to Mississippi State, which again we just proved not as great school as they make it seem to be, right? Strength schedule way worse. Strength production way worse. How is Kentucky ranked again ahead against Wisconsin with this strength schedule? I understand they have 3 losses versus Kentucky's 2 losses, but still, the number 2 toughest strength schedule in the nation. I understand they have 3 losses, but yeah, I can't justify that. Cannot justify Kentucky being right sad they are. Let's keep it going though. I have Ole Miss should be number 20. They have Ole Miss at number 16. Again, why is everyone ranked higher? Auburn, not a bad loss. Alabama, definitely not a bad loss. But strength schedule 64. I'm saying Ole Miss should be top 25 team, the top 20 team. How do you justify being number 16? Especially looking at some teams that are ahead of them. Does not make sense. Here's one that really doesn't make sense. I get that you beat Alabama, but we've already established that Alabama is overrated. And you're saying, out of all the 6-2 schools, that Auburn, who is the best out of the 6-2 schools, and Texas A&M would be a close second. That's absolutely insane to me. And we're talking about a 3-spot difference. But, yeah. Good strength schedule, good strength production. But let's look at some of the teams that are also 6-2. BYU 7-2. Yeah, I think Iowa would be a close example. So, yeah, Texas A&M should be the highest ranked 6-2 school. And they don't even have that right. They put Auburn, which makes no sense to me. Because let's just compare it to, just their logic. Looking at their logic alone, why would you rank Auburn ahead of Texas A&M? Look, 26 strength schedules, it's 20, number 10 strength production, 48 and 64. How is Auburn with the same exact record, playing the same conference, doing better than Texas A&M? Remember, Texas A&M didn't play Division II school, so even the logic of ranking SEC teams makes no sense to me. Yeah. I don't know, guys. That's it for tonight's stream, though. You guys let me know in the comments, or if you want to follow me and chat about this next time. What do you guys think? Does my rankings make sense? With this much data, I think they're pretty accurate. I think we have about 4 or 5 teams, right? So that are spot on. I think that there's another 5-10 teams that are pretty close. There's some variations, but some other teams I just think are way way off. Looking at Mississippi State, looking at Auburn specifically, I just and also all the small schools that just are not respected. Again, you could argue what you want about UTSA. You can't justify dropping out like SMU or Louisiana. Like those teams deserve to be in there. And even then, you put Fresno State. So much to unpack here. But that's it for tonight's show. I thank you guys all for watching. This was fun to jump into. I am exhausted. I am going to call it night and try to get some sleep. This is the Gaming Talk Show. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Good night, everybody. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitch.